Today to learn about self-service AI. I think it is the number one topic, obviously, in almost the world today, especially in Treasury. It's hard to even open up LinkedIn and not see posts from people on how they're using AI, how the different technology vendors across the whole Office of the CFO ecosystem are embedding AI in their platforms rapidly. And what we hear at Treasury4 the most is people want to know, how are others using AI? How are they tangibly using it? What are they doing it for? We can all imagine use of AI for cash flow forecasting, the obvious things, but maybe some of the not so obvious things like potentially policy compliance as an example. So really want to get into some of the tangibles today. I'm really thankful to be joined today by Darren Felix, who is the head of Treasury at Redis. Darren's got greater than 13 years of treasury management experience at different organizations, and he'll be sharing his story in driving the use of AI against treasury data at Redis. So, Darren, thank you for joining the call today.
Oh, pleasure to be here. Pleasure to be here, Ed.
Great. So today's agenda, we're going to really listen to Darren's story. I think people are probably tired of hearing me talk, so we'll turn it over to Darren shortly. He's going to be demoing some things. And just as a caveat, and just all data that you see here is been anonymized. It is scrubbed. It's not. It's just representative of how Darren is using data and AI at Redis, but it's not actual live data. So we're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about not only Darren's journey, but what are some of the technical considerations. And so I think the big thing that people are aware of, or growing awareness, is what's called an MCP server. Many vendors and providers, including Treasury4, have an MCP, or Model Context Protocol server, and that is how AI tools, LLMs, can interact with data in that platform under the context of the user who is logging in through that LLM tool, and be able to interact with their data. And so the MCP, you're going to see that term. That is really probably the acronym of the year in as regards to AI in the Office of the CFO, is leveraging those MCP servers. And then once Darren wraps up his presentation and sharing, then we'll have our prize portal that Emily will drive, and then we're happy to take a Q&A. And then just as part of Q&A, feel free to drop questions into the questions dialog box as we go through the today's session here. So with that, I am going to turn it over to Darren to share his screen and hear his journey. So Darren, please take it away.
Sure. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to share my screen now. Can you see?
We can.
Perfect. Perfect. So yeah, I guess the logic for this was to create a treasury dashboard that I could present, I guess, once a week was the original initial outcome. And it was just to cover all the important information that was needed for, I guess, senior level suite. So it'd be, for example, VP of finance and above. That was the logic behind it. So like you said already, Ed, like this is just illustrative figures, and also because the figures have changed, so a lot of the formatting's changed. So this isn't the final version that obviously we're using today. This was, I think, version 60. So persistence is key with AI, I think. And yeah, this is where we got to, and with this anonymized data.
That's fantastic. Maybe talk a little bit, Darren, about how did you start on the AI journey earlier this year and what was, was it something that you wanted to do as a company mandate? Just kind of what launched it for you and Redis?
Yeah, of course. So I think there was two key factors. I think the first thing was that Redis, obviously very much into tech. We do obviously caching here at Redis, and then we're trying to be the infrastructure for AI. So for us, utilizing AI to improve processes and make effectively workflows more efficient, this was a push. And we had an AI week, So everyone was brought into different groups with experts in the IT team who were specializing with AI and trying to introduce that to people. And we were told sort of just go and have at it. That was it. So they connected us to all the different MCPs for different systems that they had at the time. And it was Codex, and we've got Claude as well. And it was just basically go try and create something that you think would be useful for yourself. And then they had sessions open that you could join whenever you wanted to. And people would ask questions, people would have technical issues, and they would come back and help. So that was a big push. And then the other thing was Cooper from your end, Ed, he very much excited about the whole process. I like to say he's like a kid at Christmas. He was pushing to say how much you can do. There was like limitless potential was the way he worded it to me. And his excitability also with this AI week kind of pushed my, I guess, risk averse self to try and step into making an effort to use these tools.
That's fantastic. And as you've been working and learning the tools and becoming very beyond proficient, clearly here, how has it been the things that you're producing with AI against the Treasury data? How is that being perceived or accepted or engaged? Maybe engaged is probably the better word across the office of the CFO at Redis.
So I think it's one of those things that now I've opened the door that now everyone internally is interested and everyone wants to get on board and start doing their own thing. So this Treasury dashboard, like I said, was meant for just, like I said, a few people just to give an idea of where we are with cash, what the next step is going to be like for us as a company, where we're going to go. And now it's all of a sudden been that now people are trying to create a collections dashboard. There's a compliance dashboard. There's now like people working on receivables. There's all different things that people are trying to work on internally. And I think everyone is just excited. I can't explain how like it's gone from being that, if you created a report, it would take time, there would be a lot of effort and a lot of trying to find sources. But I'm lucky that obviously Treasury data, Treasury 4, I can reference the MCP all the time and I can reference some Google Drive folders for some other things. And I can create a report that looks pretty good off the bat, which is really great. Like it's basically like sort of quick time prototyping. If I want something and someone asks for something, I can basically create it in probably half an hour.
That's fantastic. I think the ability to iterate quickly at a really relatively low cost and self-service, I think, is really one of some of the key benefits of AI. But also, you mentioned tying together data that isn't all sitting in a single system. Maybe talk a little bit more about that. Like you have data, treasury data, banking data, other data sets, accounts, entities, and so forth. Like what are some of the data stores that you're tying into, and what maybe is your wish list to tie into or access through AI?
So we're really lucky actually. So it was 2 days ago, I think it was, we just got access to Tesario. So Tesario is our collections platform. So now the collections reporting that we're going to do, we're going to create dashboards for that as well. So we've been very lucky that the IT guys here have been amazing. They're trying to connect everything MCPs for all the systems that we have. So we've been very, very lucky. I think for us, as a finance function, I think the ideal place that we would go would be to live host this on, say, GitHub, and have, I guess, a platform for each system, and then try and merge that together that certain people have certain access to certain profiles, and certain people can do certain things. So we want to have like a compliance dashboard that has all of our documentation, but obviously that's stored in a system like, say, Treasury 4, and then we can reference that and bring that back in seconds, right? So I guess one of the things that come up is if we were audited, for example, either internally or externally, and they said, what is all the account openings for one of our entities somewhere? They could literally use a chat function in this dashboard that's going to be hosted live and it will bring it back immediately. That's where I think people are kind of hoping that it's basically like a tool that you can just literally question and talk to, and it comes back with our data for us.
That's fantastic. Where does your ERP fit into the landscape of data and being able to access that?
So we just got access to NetSuite has been connected to Claude, I think 2 weeks ago. We haven't got it connected to Codex just yet. This was generated in Codex, by the way. So yeah, I'm hoping that it'll be connected soon. I think, like I said, IT here are working flat out, but that's literally next step for us.
That's fantastic. So in what you're showing here, you built this in Codex, and how was the learning curve coming up and working with Codex? Did you do any maybe training sessions that were offered, or did you just kind of learn on your own and just play and iterate and just kind of learn what you could do with it?
Not literally the latter. So jumping straight in, I think having that kind of support from the IT team here to actually get you to go and do like just go and have fun and come back effectively with something. I think that really helped kind of take the worry from people to actually get in and get stuck in and do what you needed to do. Um, but for me, it was just making the iterations and keep going. I think that's one thing about AI, and I know people have said it many a time, but AI is very smart, but also very stupid at the same time. Um,
Yep.
so when you make your iterations, the iterations have to be quite specific and you have to keep enforcing those and keep making sure that you stick to those. And I found that like even for the formatting, which I know is something very simple, I had to create a skill for formatting. So I said, make sure you use the treasury colors, the treasury text, the treasury, everything that it could possibly, like the margins, the shapes, all the shadows, all that kind of stuff. Make sure you use this. And I created it as a skill. Again, because Cooper suggested if you make it as a skill, you can use it for anything that you create. So I have a Redis formatting skill, and it basically references that every time when we create something.
I think that is a great point there, using skills and to effectively put in all the parameters that you want something to be done. In this case, the formatting, fonts, colors, effect branding. I mean, this is effectively your branding here in the presentation layer. So I think that is fantastic. Maybe we could talk a little bit more about skills. Where else do you see them being applicable for within the Treasury context, to the Treasury responsibilities and business processes?
So I have skills for updating the report because obviously at the moment I'm still kind of testing the newest version of this that we've got. So I get it to refresh daily. Even though I'm not going to send it daily, I want it to refresh by itself. So I created a skill on how to update basically every section of this report. And this report is quite long and I have cut it down since this was done because obviously, you can have information overload because there is the possibilities that you can do basically anything in here. So it's actually getting the data that you actually need for your target audience, I think is also a challenge at the end of the day because you can bring back almost anything. But the skill for updating, I think that's probably the biggest thing. So that automation of running and making sure it checks all the file paths, account data, everything every day, that's the skill that I'm probably the happiest with at the moment.
That's fantastic. In terms of in this particular dashboard here, and you have different definitions like visible liquidity, unrestricted cash, restricted cash. How do you drive the kind of the context or the definitions around those values? Is that being done with a skill, or is that being using just the underlying data set and the labels coming out of the database?
Correct, yeah. So we have like accounts that are I guess, noted in, say, Treasury4, and we have them that what they do and what they are effectively, and we have that. And when we reference through the MCP, it come back with this data and it asks, are these balances correct? So I actually did a lot of like I said, Treasury4 has been like the foundation layer, as I would word it. It's like the structure that basically brings everything together. And I don't think I would have got as far without, the metadata and the structures and yeah, the Treasury4 itself to get this far.
So I think that's kind of giving really the aspect of context, right? What's the context of the data? How is it labeled? What is the business definition around it? And we have a question coming in here from one of the attendees, which is, why did you go through the MCP route versus load the data from various systems into an enterprise data lake? Maybe I'll take a first pass at that, and Darren, feel free to jump in afterwards. But I would say in working with MCP servers, uh, you can use MCP can connect really to anything, a data lake to the application itself, depending on how that MCP is configured. So, and then I would say going through the MCP route, when it's connected to the application, you're getting closer to the data as close as possible. and you have effectively near-time access to it. Versus a data lake, there may be latency in the replication. There may be some other source data that doesn't ultimately get into a data lake, depending on how it's architected. And then I think one of the other key things there that Darren's mentioned is through an MCP and the use of AI tools like Codex, you're able to connect multiple data sets together and bring it and synthesize it. And so I think in effectively near time. So I think those are some of the reasons why you might want to go the MCP route. But again, it just depends on how your organization is architected to that. Darren, you want to expand on that?
I was literally going to say it's the organizational push, right? So that's where the push is going using MCP. But also, I think it's the fact that the IT guys at Redis here, they know that they're going to push to connect as many systems as they possibly can through AI, because I think the efficiency that you get from that, I think, is massive, and I think that's just literally what they want to do. I think they're future proofing themselves structurally, so it makes sense to me.
That's fantastic. Another question here. How frequent does this dashboard refresh? And is there a specific prompt you use to pull this dashboard up in Codex?
Oh God, so yes, there is quite a prompt. So I have a refresh Treasury Executive Dashboard uh, uh, skill, and basically it runs through that every day. So I set it to run at 8 a.m. UK time every day, just to make sure it goes through. And I check it. I don't check all of it because obviously I've got to the point now where I would say I'm about 90% of the way there. That when you're creating something like this, by the way, it's very strange. You get to like 70% very quickly. And then it's that refinement of that 30% at the end that seems to be quite difficult. And sometimes it requires a lot of persistence to get it to the point where it can actually update itself, such as the skill. So the skill will say like, oh, I've updated everything. And then I will randomly check some things, like some of the data just in different areas, and something will be wrong. And it just says it thinks that it's updated itself when it hasn't. So you have to just be aware of that when you're building it. But yeah, the skills, like it runs automatically every day. I can actually set it up with a Slack message. If I wanted to, I could actually send a Slack to the bot and it would know to pick it up from there.
That's fantastic. Maybe going the underlying data or the data that you want to work with. What's some data that you envision wanting to work with in the future? What's your wish list on other data sets, maybe even beyond Treasury, that you could see being applicable to how you want to work and leverage AI?
Well, I think the next thing for me is obviously the collections. That's the now we've got the Tesario connection. I'm very excited to be doing some dashboards about that. I think that's going to be a big one, right? Because I think that can also feed into this in some way, shape, or form, especially if this is a weekly report. The collections, I mean, I don't know how often collections want to send their reporting and the data, but I think that's probably the next one. I think as well, like it'd be good to have AP. So having where we're paying, what we're paying for, like obviously a lot of things are going to be AI related, right? So it'd be good to actually kind of break that down into what's our spend with, say, Claude versus OpenAI, like where we're going. I think it'd be good to break that down. I think obviously the visualization tool of using something like this, I think really helps because you can have things listed down and written down, but I think having it visualized is a massive win for anyone. So yeah, I think that they're the two things next.
That's fantastic. One question from one of the attendees: are you using AI agents at all in running business operations or business processes? And if yes, how many agents are you using, or approximately?
So at the moment, for finance that I'm aware of, we're using none. But I think
Okay.
agents are on the list to, like I said, it kind of this opened the door for everyone, and I think everyone can see the value. So at the moment, none. But I think it's a matter of time before it happens.
Yeah. How would you envision maybe using agents and AI in the relationship with your banking partners, maybe around things like KYC or account management and signatory validation? You see that applicability of agents in helping drive some of those longer running what is currently likely manual processes that you're working through.
I think this is like part of that compliance dashboard that I spoke
Mm,
about. Like it's going to be joined with this. I think that's probably where that's going to be. And I think it'd be great, obviously, if we can get that working. Because I'd love to host it live, like I said. And then if we give access to people, it'd be that we could give say a bank access that the bank could come in and get some documentation that they need from, so they wouldn't even have to deal with us, basically. That would be ideal, even for auditors. They could have an audit only access. Um, so I think it's coming. I think it's just going to be a matter of time. I mean, I haven't thought about it specifically. I think I've just been trying to work on this and collections and getting MCP connections internally. Um,
Sure.
yeah, I think it just takes time and, like I said, persistence. I think that's the most important thing, to be honest.
I love the persistence, and the corollary I would use is with that is curiosity, right? Because you have to be curious to want to learn the technology and how to leverage it, and then persistent in making that happen. And so I think, yeah, you're really demonstrating both of those here and what you're doing, leveraging AI and driving this. One of the questions from the attendees here is, if you have a regional treasury structure, let me back up here. If you have a regional treasury structure, each region may include different sets of accounts for, say, visible liquidity. So the question is, does everyone need to set up these prompts and skills on their own? Or do you see the opportunity to do shared skills or have a kind of a central skill set that then can be used and then configured for maybe a regional need?
Yeah, definitely. I think the shared skills makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's no point in reinventing the wheel, right? Like I think if you've got the hard work has already been put in, and like I said, the persistence to get you to the stage where you need to be, I think having this as shared would make a lot of sense. Definitely.
Yeah, fantastic. How important well, clearly it's a very critical input here is your banking data. It's in a dashboard like this, the balances, transactions, how you're synthesizing all of that. Maybe talk about how uh, putting your context, your definition around all those bank transactions in terms of kind of cash categorization, cash flow class, type, subtype. How important is that context? And is there additional data that you would like to see at the transaction level from the bank that would help drive context or understanding?
That's a really good question. Wow. Okay. That's a really good question because I didn't even think of adding that data. Um, so from my perspective, right, Treasury 4, like I said, is the foundational level for all of this, right? Like I said, we wouldn't be able to get here without Treasury 4. So for me, getting all of the rules and making sure transactions are accounted for correctly and making sure everything's categorized was essential. Like I can't imagine I would be able to do this any other way, to be honest with you. I haven't thought about what other data would be needed. That's actually a very good idea. I didn't even think about it anymore because I think I was so excited about the fact that we'd got to a stage where the reporting can almost look like a branded report from
Mhm.
Treasury, from Redis, sorry. So for me, I haven't thought about that. That's a good point. I'm not too sure. I mean, I don't know what else we could add, but I feel like Treasury 4 has everything in it because of the rules that we already set up. So obviously I spent time with Griffin to set those up. And I think they've really paid dividend now. But yeah, I'll have to think about that. I'm not entirely sure.
I would just maybe think about some of the other tech enablers out there. Everybody that's on the call here is familiar with kind of the legacy statement formats, MT940, BAI2. Nothing's changing, very limited data population. And then you think about where the industry is going with APIs, real time, and then and some banks, what we're seeing is some banks are innovating on the data payload that they're providing through their APIs to give a richer data payload and providing things like FX conversions. So when I have a transaction in a currency other than the bank account currency, what is that instructed currency code, the amount, the conversion rate, the contract number? Now, if I have that, I can start doing measurements around that and quantify that. Or being able to, some banks are reporting things like the fee deducts. So I'm expecting a wire for $1,000. I get 985, $15 was taken away. I can actually see that as an explicit deduction. Or even importantly, things like who's the ultimate beneficiary or ultimate creditor, and which can then drive compliance. And so thinking about some of that extended transaction level data and how it could be used not only for reconciliation, but really importantly for analytics here. And so I think as more and more banks are innovating on that front via their data payloads, APIs, it has a direct impact on how you can leverage AI against that.
think we're living like in a society now where data is extremely valuable, and anything that you can add to a data source to give you more context or color to what you're doing, I think is important. But yeah, what you said, that's 100% correct.
Fantastic. A question here is, can you perform trend analysis with MCP from data obtained from source systems? I don't know if you've done any trend analysis yet, but at Treasury4, we have other users using our MCP with the tools like Codex and Claude and are doing trend analysis. But I'd love to get your thoughts, Darren.
I have got some graphing data in here and some trends in here with forecasted values. I can scroll down and show
Sure,
everyone
that
this.
that'd be great.
Um, sorry. Um, sorry.
Wow,
It's
there's
quite
a lot here in this
there's,
dashboard. This is
there's a
great.
lot here. Yeah. So I've got cash flow trend and forecast handoff. So I ran this report in May. So this is our actuals effectively, and this is where the forecasted are. Obviously, it's not real numbers, but it can actually put all of this data into any graph that you like or any sort of shape that you suggest. It does come up with ideas by itself, but they're not always applicable for what you want it to be. So, like for example, when I had account data, right? So I think probably the best idea to show you would be this. So the global account map. So this is an interactive map effectively. And when we host this, I hope it's going to have details on the back end that you can actually see. So if I hover over a region, it actually changes. So it says there's 5 accounts, what currencies we've got, how much cash we've got there. And it does that for all the regions for the APAC. Obviously, it's not 100% accurate, right? But this is what we've got here, and it's interactive. So it actually keeps people engaged into what they can see and what they can do as well. So yeah, it can graph anything, like absolutely anything. Have I got any more charts to show you in here? So I've got like 13-week liquidity view as just simple line graphs, right? And then yeah, we've got some donuts, obviously, just for currency mix and what the layout is of the currencies where they are, and who their banking partners are, like who they are, and what they're with. And then we've got FX data here as well. Have I got anything else? Just to show you that would be interesting. And this is sorry, and this I know you spoke about it earlier, Ed, but like measuring against your treasury policy, say, so brag control matrix I've got here. So it just basically ranks you on if it's green compared to for cash flow forecasting for core bank structure, like it actually goes against our policy and ticks things off. And it's all in here and it's all broken down in detail. So I think, like I said, possibilities are endless. It just I think the trick once you get to that 90% near the end is actually limiting what you put in because I think you can have information overload because everything is there, you know. Um,
That is fantastic.
yeah.
I mean, this is really incredible. And if you've effectively done this all on your own using your underlying data, and so again, going back to both being curious and persistent, one of the questions from one of the attendees is, what was the initial investment in time to get this dashboard up and running? It was just months of work, and then clearly this is iterative. But maybe just give a sense of how much time you spent putting into developing this.
So we had that AI week, like I said, and then I think that was probably about 4 hours a day. I think after about 4 days, I had something that was the outline of what I wanted to show. So I think less than a week, you can get something that's pretty solid. I mean, you obviously need to check the data when you refresh it and you need to refine it 100%. But there's definitely the bones of something that I think is going to add value not only to you, but to other people in the business.
I think this really demonstrates this idea of moving away from traditional report views, right? Because a report view or exporting data, when you export data, effectively it becomes stale data almost instantly, right? And now you have this interactive view and that draws users into working with the data and questioning it. And now one question gets answered, drives another question, and they can really explore and interact with the data here. And I think this is really, really fantastic. And getting, we still see, people kind of historically, even myself, I've been in I hate to say how many decades I've been working, but I still have kind of this paradigm of, it's a report view. I have to have a report. But being a finance person, it's typically a tabular report looking like a spreadsheet or is a spreadsheet. And but that doesn't necessarily help you answer questions or engage with your data on a deeper level. And I think what you're showing here is really, I think the showing kind of the art of the possible, but the reality of what you can do with AI and self-service. So
100%.
kudos to you, Darren. This is great.
Can I just
Uh,
add as well? I
yeah.
think also it's just there's that self-service element as well that I want to kind of push to. So as much as I've created the report and the report hopefully will be live internally, it's also the fact that I can give a link to someone and they can just view this report whenever they want to. And because it's live and I know that it's running in the background, like this is a live view for them. So if they need to make a decision on something, they've got literally the most up-to-date data available and they can do it themselves. They don't have to rely on me to come back to them because Redis is a global company, right? Time zones all over the place. So anyone can access and do whatever, as long as we give them permissions, obviously, they can do the work themselves. They don't need to be asking too many questions unless they obviously want to, and then we're more than happy to help. But a lot of this data is already there for them. And yeah, self-service, that's where we're going.
That's fantastic. How's your IT organization? Like, how much time are they spending? I'm assuming you have internal MCP servers inside of Redis, and then they're working with your other application vendors and partners to entitle or get permissions to their MCP servers. So, kind of what's the engagement level, and how much time are they spending, and how much time do you engage with them?
I think we've got actually dedicated people for setting up and working on this stuff. Like we've actually got Slack channels that you can message for support. So another AI tool that we're using at the moment is called Zapier. So it basically just does automates simple tasks effectively. So when I make a trade and I document it in just a Google Sheets, it can actually send a Slack message to the approver to approve the messages. So we've actually got a channel just for Zapier. We've got a channel just for Claude, channel just for OpenAI or Codex, and we've got all that actually ready. So people are, I don't see anyone taking longer than 2 minutes to respond to you, to be honest. So there's a big push internally to use AI to make things efficient.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And just for the attendees on the call here, Treasury4, we have our own MCP server that we've built. We continue to add capabilities to it, and we're supporting all the major LLM tools of OpenAI, Anthropic. We're now adding support for Copilot, and then we'll have looking at Gemini after that. So we want to meet our customers where they're at using the tools that their organization is authorized and gone through the vetting process and approved. So we want to meet our customers where they're at. I know we're coming up on time here, Darren. Any last words of advice for the attendees in kind of getting started with AI, driving self-service? How do you encourage people to engage and lean into this technology?
Yeah. So I being a treasurer, quite risk averse, right? That's me. That's in my bones of who I am. I think you just need to jump with both feet. I think literally once you start and you see what you can do, I don't think there's anything actually stopping you. I think you can literally create anything that comes to your mind. Obviously, you need, like I said, you need to be persistent. And I keep pushing that fact because there are times when this has driven me crazy. But yeah, you just need to be persistent. And I think there's no limit to what you can do. So yeah, just jump both feet straight in and do it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing your journey and your story, Darren. And we look forward to hosting you again in a few months and seeing all the other new things that you're going to build in that period of time. And I know all the attendees here appreciate that. This is really a true, tangible demonstration of AI in action, which is great. So with that, I think we're going to switch gears here and go over to the prize portal, and then we'll end off with any other closing or final questions from the attendees. So, Emily, over to you.
Stop sharing.
Perfect. Sounds great. Thank you so much, Ed. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Perfect. Are you guys seeing my fun prize portal,
We
hopefully?
are.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, amazing. So real quick, if you guys are new to the series, I'm gonna go ahead and pick two winners one at a time. And once you see your name pop up on the screen, you go ahead and type in the chat which portal you would like me to open. So go ahead and type in any of the numbers, 1, 2, 3, or 4, into the chat. I'll go ahead and pick that portal and you'll see what prize you win. But you have to, I see some people sending numbers, only if you are picked. Don't send a number unless you're picked. So first, let's pick our first winner. Okay, winner number one is Helene. Helene C. Okay, perfect. I see you want to pick portal number 4, so I'm gonna go ahead and do that. And you are the winner of a $100 Amazon gift card. So congratulations. This is perfect actually because it is Amazon Prime Week, I believe. So amazing choice. And now I'm going to reset and shuffle for one more winner. All right, our final winner is Jorge. Jorge G, please go ahead and type in the chat which portal you'd like us to pick. If you're still here, hopefully. Jorge Gomez. If not, I'm gonna pick another
I
winner.
think Jorge is still online.
Let's see. I'll give it a couple seconds. One more time for Jorge Gomez. All right, I'm gonna pick another winner. Okay, winner number 2 is, I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong, Oksana. Oksana M. If you go ahead and type in the chat which portal you'd like. Okay, portal number 1. Gonna go ahead and pick that. And you won some Ray-Ban Meta glasses. Congratulations to both of our winners, Helene and Oksana. I'm gonna go ahead and reply to you guys. Reach out via email after this session, get you guys coordinated with your prizes. So again, thank you so much for attending, and I'll follow up with your prizes. And now we do have a couple minutes left for some more questions. So I'm going to go ahead and stop screen sharing. And let's see, I think we have some even in the chat. We want to go through those, but real quick.
Yeah, a question here on Darren, any governance issues to consider? Maybe thinking about data security or authorization, just maybe your thoughts on how you approach that.
Well, we've got enterprise accounts, obviously, with both Claude and Codex. So from that perspective about confidentiality of data and all that kind of stuff, that was covered. That was covered by our legal team. They reviewed the contracts and everything. So that's all above board. From that perspective, from us, I mean, I haven't thought about anything because I know that IT cleared it. So from us, we haven't thought about anything else. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's organization wide, and that's why
Sure.
you really want to work with your IT team when you're connecting to MCP servers using the corporate approved tools versus kind of your own personal subscriptions. I think that's probably first and foremost from a governance perspective. And then I would just say that most MCP servers should be using your user credentials that you're connecting to the MCP server so that you are governed under what data you can access as if you were, or the same way as if you were going through the user interface of the application. So you should not have any more access to data than what you would do through the application itself. Uh, and a question here, where do you see the capabilities going with tools like Codex? And I think that's a great question because the capabilities are changing And I would almost say daily, but certainly weekly and monthly with new model releases and the innovation that's coming out of the major AI companies. But any thoughts there, Darren, on kind of where you see things going?
Honestly, I think it's what you can imagine, right? Like I know that sounds very in the air, right? But I think it's one of those things that um there's so much to do. And I think, like you said, things are changing. Like there's updates to Codex every day, at least one update. And that's just from that side. And then I know that obviously the systems that you're working with are trying to keep up and keep pace. And I think your skills, if you don't jump into it sort of now, I think your skills will probably be holding you back. So I think you have to jump in as well and just do what you can. So I think literally there's going to be no stopping anyone from doing, honestly, quite amazing things in Codex and Claude and all the other AI tools available.
I've never seen a technology come on so fast, so strong, and so pervasively, and disruptively. So we all need to lean in. The best way to work with it is to lean in and be curious and persistent. So, Darren, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your story. This has been an excellent time. I really appreciate you spending it with us.
No, it's a pleasure. And thank you for everyone for listening to me for 45 minutes. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, attendees. And with that, we're going to wrap up and feel free to connect with Darren or myself on LinkedIn. And we look forward to having you join us on our next AI Decoded session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yep.
Take
Thank
care.
you guys. We also have a short survey pop up. We would really appreciate you taking 30 seconds to complete that. It helps us make sure we are building sessions that are very valuable for Treasury teams. And as Ed just mentioned, we did drop LinkedIn for Darren and Ed in the chat for you guys to go ahead and connect with them. We also drop Treasury4s as well if you want to follow us and subscribe to our monthly newsletter. It's very, very, very great, really informational, and we dropped that in the chat as well. And yeah, just another shout out for Darren and Ed for such a practical and eye-opening conversation today. And thank you all for being here. Hope to see you at the next Decoded session. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thanks,
great
everyone.
day. Bye bye.